Welcome to the Cosmic Busker. My name is Bobby Cody. In this video I want to expand on one of my previous posts. That post was why our solar system is so strange and unique, the exploding planet hypothesis. In that one I took a look at the research of Thomas Van Flandern. Also took a look at what our solar system looks like and how it compares to other solar systems. And it appears that there were two planets that exploded in the distant past in our solar system. I want to take a look at that from a different perspective. I want to take a look at it through the research of remote viewers. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I have studied remote viewing in the past. I studied through a gentleman by the name of Gerald O'Donnell. I ordered his course and studied remote viewing on my own about 20 years ago. I never got good at it, didn't stick to it, but I think it essentially helped to increase what was already a certain intuition that I had. Give a little background on remote viewing. Remote viewing came about through the pioneer of one individual by the name of Ingo Swann. And forgive me, I'm doing this all by memory. I'm going to post links down below so you can do further research. Ingo Swann was a pioneer in the late 60s, early 70s, who had the capacity to just essentially remote viewing is being a psychic essentially, but there's a whole protocol and there's a science to it, and a science to being able to do it. Ingo Swann was able to do this naturally. He developed a structure to how you would be able to remote view. Ultimately, he went to Stanford University, which is a preeminent research university here in the United States in California. They studied his method and his ability to do this, and they ultimately developed a means of being able to remote view. Real quick, one of the things that Ingo Swann did, and one of the things that really proved his ability to do this, and this is just one of the ways that he proved it, was in his remote viewing. Ingo Swann remote viewed the solar system, and he said at the time, this is late 60s, early 70s, he said Jupiter, the planet, has rings on it. Now, anyone who's familiar with the planets knows that the only one we know of, or is popularized, is that Saturn has rings. At the time, scientists scoffed at the idea that Jupiter had rings. We can see Jupiter doesn't have rings. Later on, long after Ingo Swann remote viewed Jupiter and said it has rings, in 1979 we sent the Viking orbiter to Jupiter. Sure enough, the Viking orbiter found that Jupiter had rings, many years after Ingo Swann claimed it did. So, once again, link down below for Ingo Swann. But there's an institute called the Farsight Institute. It's run by Courtney Brown, and he has developed what are called military-grade remote viewers. Ultimately, the remote viewers started working with the military, Army intelligence, Special Forces intelligence, to remote view the enemy and see what they were doing, where their missiles were, etc., etc. So there's what's called military-grade remote viewers. People are really good at it. Courtney Brown, his Farsight Institute, has trained remote viewers. He took the best of his remote viewers, and he has them do projects. So at one point he had them take a look at what's called the exploded planet hypothesis. First, I'm going to go to Courtney Brown himself. He's going to talk about the exploded planet hypothesis. First, we're going to take a look at where he talks about one of Saturn moons, Iapetus, and how it confirms the exploding planet hypothesis.
Respect to their origin. We also looked at the dark splotch, which is on the side of Iapetus. This dark splotch, Thomas Van Flandern hypothesized, was caused by a debris wave that resulted from the exploding planet, and the debris wave traveled rapidly throughout the entire solar system, and when it encountered Iapetus, it left that dark splotch on it. Iapetus is a white, airless, icy moon of Saturn, and it is tidally locked, so it does not rotate on its axis. So essentially it would have held steady while the debris wave rapidly hit it. Mainstream astronomers, wanting to avoid the concept of an exploding planet, have come up with other reasons for that dark splotch. Originally, they were saying it was dark material that was sublimating up from the interior of Iapetus. That was a hard sell, to be honest, given the way it looks. More recently, scientists are saying that there is an...
All right, now let's cut to the same individual, Courtney Brown from the Farsight Institute. He's going to describe how the surface of Mars also supports the exploding planet hypothesis. Let's take a look at that.
This is clearly a slow, gradual process. However, look at Mars. Mars is heavily cratered on one side. In fact, that cratered half of Mars is also much thicker. The crust is much thicker than the other side. Now, if you spin Mars around to the other side, you find that it has almost no craters on it. A couple volcanoes, a couple craters, but essentially it is flat. Now, if you look at the dividing line between the cratered side and the flat or uncratered side, it clearly looks as if something happened to Mars on one side that did not happen to Mars on the other side. And that's exactly what Thomas Van Flandern said. He said that a planet that was near Mars exploded, creating all those craters on the side of Mars. And this, he says, is exactly what happened with Iapetus. The major difference between Iapetus and Mars is that Mars was much closer to the exploding planet than Iapetus. Iapetus was much farther away. These data which
Okay, so there we have evidence of two celestial bodies in our solar system that show evidence of an exploding planet in our solar system in the past. Iapetus has the scorch marks on one side, and then Mars has one side that's heavily cratered, the other side is relatively devoid of craters. There's a third celestial body in our solar system that shows that evidence as well of exploding planet, and that's our planet, planet Earth. I won't go over that evidence. I've done a video on that in the past. I'll provide that link down below if you want to take a look at the evidence that the Earth shows regarding an exploding planet in our ancient past. What I'd like to do now is I want to just take a look at a screenshot from Farsight's video, remote viewing video, that shows the it basically summarizes what the remote viewers found when they did remote view, what had happened to the asteroid belt. These are 4 military-grade remote viewers, the best of the best. And we're going to take a look at the creation of the asteroid belt, and there's basically 2 theories on how the asteroid belt was created. The vast majority of scientists believe that was created during the creation of the solar system. There's a nebula, and prior to the formation of the solar system, and the nebula eventually, parts of the nebula solidified and became the asteroid belt. The other theory is the exploding planet hypothesis, that there was a planet between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars, and that this planet exploded. So I just want to take a look at a summary of what all of these excellent remote viewers found, and compared, and what their evidence and what their remote viewing showed happened to the asteroid belt and how it was created. Let's go to that right now. So So here we have a chart that shows the remote viewers and basically summarizes what they found. Along the left-hand side here we have the names of the 4 military-grade remote viewers. And at the top we have the 2 theories regarding the creation of the asteroid belt. Those 2 theories are the solar nebula that was formed during the beginning of the solar system, and the other theory is the exploding planet hypothesis. It's graded on a scale of 0 to 3. So 0 means they found no evidence for it. A 3 means they found perfect evidence for it. As you can see from this chart, all 4 military-grade remote viewers found evidence for the exploding planet hypothesis. Now, one of the important ways that remote viewing works is the remote viewers are given very scant information on what they are looking for. They may be giving just coordinates, numbers, latitude, longitude, just something that will inform them in no way what they are attempting to remote view. So they can't prejudge what they're going to do once they go into the remote viewing state. So here I'd like to cut to Courtney Brown presenting to 2 of the remote viewers the actual target that they were looking at after they had remote viewed it. They had no idea what they were looking for, looking at, or for. They just went into remote viewing state. They described what they saw, and then after the fact, after several remote viewers, or I think it's 3 or 4 of them in this case, had presented their results, he showed them what they were actually looking at. Let's cut to that and let's see their reactions.
Doing things. Anyway, so here is the target for the first part, 21A.
Why did she get it first?
Oh, you get the first one next time.
What? Hold on, wait a second.
I'm trying to
Understand.
Okay, so let me explain it. The target, as it is written in, is the viewer will remote view the war in heaven, as referenced in the book of Revelations 12:7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. So you see, not just in the Judeo-Christian culture, but also in almost all other religions and cultures, there's talk about this huge war that happened before humans were around in the heavens someplace. And the question always was, how could that reference to that battle, you get it in the scans, in the Vedic texts, in ancient Hinduism, how could that so-called war in the skies be referenced in so many different cultures?
What?
So I picked the one reference of it, the war in heaven, and I said, we want to know 2 things. We want to know what was this thing, and then we want to know how did it get into human culture? Meaning, how did it get to the point that we know about it? If it happened like millions and millions and millions of years ago, how is it that humans have it in so many different cultures, this reference of a war in heaven?
All right, and now let's cut to the 2 remote viewers taking a look at the target, a new target, along the same lines, or actually the results, and discussing among themselves what they both found. And as you'll see, both of them, well, their mind is blown. Let's look at that.
Blown.
Oh, goodness, I'll have to clip this out. You look at that, I'm going to have to take this. Aziz, this is Dad.
I wasn't thinking of like a Bible situation, but now that
I definitely felt I might have been on Mars because I saw the red.
I was getting a Mars feel, but I was like, I feel like I'm getting other planets. I'm getting like something
I got
different.
galaxies, like the stars and the galaxies.
Yeah, I was getting like all types of like a cloudy mist environment.
Okay.
I kept saying that, and I
What
was
colors?
just like I was getting, I got the purple,
the purple and the blues, and then it turned like red.
Yeah, I'm getting that, and I'm getting like this rock, like this city
Rocky.
of like.
You saw like a city in space,
I'm
right?
I'm getting a city. I'm getting like civilization.
We got the exact same thing. This is weird.
I'm getting
blown.
the whole feel of like people. And
What
then,
is heaven?
And then I'm
I
getting
got questions.
I think it's just a place that, like I said, like I feel like okay, we're not in this form anymore. When we go to another place, I think we're still gonna live. We're just not gonna be in this form.
Well, we're not going to be in this form. We're always, and I feel the same way as.
I feel like
There's and I know this scripture. I have a Christian background, so but it's like, okay, so Courtney knows what we're doing. How does he know what we're saying is true, like the true parts that he knows versus the parts that he doesn't know? How does he know? I'm mind blown. I've never been this mind blown in my life.
yeah, like I wasn't thinking there was going to be the title or what was the mystery. You know what I'm saying?
Now, after the 2 remote viewing sessions about the war in heaven, Courtney Brown wanted to confirm that Mars was actually involved in this war and the destruction of the planet. So he had them do a 3rd remote viewing session where they remote viewed what happened to Mars during this time period. Let's cut to that and see what they have to say about that.
To deal with it, because he's dealing with recording stuff over there at the same time for the same thing. So, okay, so this is the session. This is the target. The viewer will remote view the planet Mars during the most destructive phase of the event that is referenced by the author of the book of Revelation, where the author describes the war in heaven. Book of Revelation 12:7, and there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels also, and the dragon and his angels fought. So the idea was, in the first target, 21A, you clearly described the whole war, the whole scope of it. The second target, you told us how we learned about it, how aliens actually inserted it in our cultures strategically with various prophets, and it got built into our religion so that we all knew about it. The third target tells us where it was, because there was enough in your first 2 sessions, the first 2 targets, for me to figure out that sounds a lot like Mars and where it was the asteroid belt of a planet. So I had to create the target Mars to check if at that exact time when the war in heaven was at its worst, what was going on in Mars. And you guys both got the same thing. So did Aziz. The stuff that was going on in target 21A was the same stuff that was going on at 21C. It was Mars. So
the war in heaven was on Mars?
There was a planet between Jupiter and Mars called that people commonly refer to as Maldek. That was the one that blew up. And you guys, plus Aziz, have now completely described how that happened. Why there was a war. There was a war between Mars and Maldek. And there was one species on Maldek, the one that blew up.
So it's the species that's having a war, not the planets.
There was one species that dominated Maldek and another species that dominated Mars. And they were blasting the heck out of each other. And Mars, as a desperate last resort, had to eliminate that threat. And that was the end of Maldek. That's how the war stopped. But it also ended, comfortable times on Mars as well. So what we did now is we bookended the whole thing. We actually saw the war in heaven without knowing where it is. Then all the descriptions matched Mars and the asteroid belt. But I didn't know for sure. Then we found out how the idea got inserted into human cultures. And
Finally, I'd just like to summarize what I think happened based on all of this information. Where Mars and Jupiter currently is, there was a planet. And at the time, Mars was actually, in my opinion, a moon of this planet. So you had a large planet upon which there was one species, and Mars was a moon of this planet upon which there was another species. These species warred with each other. Ultimately, they destroyed each other. The larger planet was completely destroyed. I believe that ultimately Mars got, if that planet, that larger planet was destroyed and Mars is a moon, Mars would have been sent off as well. Shooting off and eventually got into its own orbit. I think ultimately that Mars still became habitable, and that ultimately life began again on Mars, and that once again, intelligent life came to Mars, whether it's survivors of this destruction, or which I think is the most likely hypothesis, or intelligent life developed again, which I don't think is the case. But then, once again, they destroyed themselves again. So we had first Maldek, as it's called in Mars, go to war. Maldek gets destroyed. Mars goes to its own orbit. And they rebuild on Mars. They destroy Mars again, which is why Mars is in the bad shape that it's in. It's a lesson for us. We're the last planet that has intelligent life in our solar system. It's something, in order not to make the same mistakes from the past, you have to learn your past. So, in my opinion, this is one of the most important things we can learn and discover about ourselves and our past so that we can have a prosperous future. Thanks for watching. Comment below whether you agree or disagree, and everybody have a great day. Thank you.